we're ground zero lately. So
Yeah. Well, as I said in another update, unfortunately, I have to go back to Canada for a bit, but I'll
yeah,
mark North Carolina down as a future place, and by that time, maybe people will be knowing this podcast a lot more. But there was so much news this week. Where do you want to start? I mean, Christopher Mellon was on a podcast. Mike Gold was on numerous podcasts. There was a whole hearing by the
mm-hmm.
UFO Disclosure Fund, I believe, or UAP Disclosure Fund in Washington with
Yeah,
Tim Gallaudet, Lou Elizondo, Avi Loeb,
Chris Mellon was there.
Chris Mellon, yeah, had a
Eric
presentation.
Davis, yeah,
Eric Davis, yeah, he kind of came out of the shadows.
yeah,
Then we had on Joe Rogan, Hal Puthoff,
mm-hmm.
uh, Area 52 podcast had a good interview with Whitley Strieber. I mean, a lot was coming out this week, so I'll
Yeah,
let you jump into it. And by the way, thank you to the UAP Disclosure Fund. They let me post clips of all of the speakers, so they're not in it for the money at all. They're like, please, yes, get the word out about what we're trying to do here. So I
mm-hmm.
appreciate that to the good folks at the UAP Disclosure Fund.
Yeah, in the PDF. I mean, I wasn't going to jump into this initially, but we might as well and just jump right forward to this point, and we'll back up into this and help people realize what's going on. Whether you like this topic or not, whether you believe this topic or not, whether you have any vested interest in this topic or not, your tax dollars are being spent to research it, to set up committees for it, to do intake briefings for it. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. That's just the way it is. Many of us didn't realize that our tax money was being spent on OSAP and ATIP, which were the programs that were being spent to or used to investigate this. Doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. Doesn't matter if I believe in it or not. Our money's being spent on it. So this is it's very interesting because when you open Hannibal, you said it's not really making mainstream news. Well, they had this hearing, and the hearing was called the Understanding UAP Science, National Security, and Innovation. And it was put on by the UAPDF, the UAP Disclosure Fund, which were made up of a lot of the names you just mentioned there. But two of the representatives in the House that were sitting there listening, nodding along, were Burleson and Paulina Luna. So we hear a lot about those two names. Burleson is making news recently about bringing in David Grush on the Capitol Hill and like using Grush to leak.
Burchett was there too.
Burchett was
Tim
there.
Burchett, who I've
Mm-hmm.
interviewed, as well as the representative from Alaska.
Yeah. But like positioned right there beside Eric Davis, Mellon during a lot of these interviews or these parts of the briefing was Paulina Luna and Burleson. But yeah, kind of tucked in back there. I saw Burchett there for a while and then the Alaskan representative. But I just bring this up about Burleson and Paulina Luna because in Burchett roughly, but here lately Burleson and Paulina Luna have kind of jumped ahead of Burchett and some of the others about like being vocal about what's going on. And they don't post anything about it. So I checked their X account. I checked Burleson's and Paulina Luna. The only thing that Paulina Luna said to propagate this or to put out any type of like messaging was she put out a message like a day or two ago and she said, I met and heard from Avi Loeb. He is a brilliant astrophysicist. That's all she said. She didn't.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because no one even really shared the link from the UAP Disclosure Fund video because I was trying to find it and a fan pointed me in the right direction. But
UFO Joe Murgia has a lot of that. So if you're on X and you're listening to us and you want to go find a lot of what me and Hannibal's talking about, old reliable Joe, who does a lot of the transcripts on this stuff. If you go look up Joe Murgia on X, if you're even remotely interested in the topic and you're not following Joe, then you're missing out because he's transcribing it, he's posting the videos, and Joe's like our resource for this stuff. So shout out to Joe. But yeah, I mean, they're not bringing it up. So, I mean, it's interesting because it's like if this is, and we'll get into, we're going to back up here in a minute and help folks because a lot of people don't want to sit and listen to that hearing. I'm telling you, Eric Davis is hard to sit and listen to. I mean, you
He
want to follow.
admitted that there was aliens in existence,
Yeah.
though, which is incredible.
Which
And
was
it's not really published anywhere. He admitted that there was insectoid-looking aliens,
reptilians.
Nordics, reptilians, and greys,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
In front of House members. Now, keep in mind that there was like this little hearing, and man, every time I think I'm on top of my research game, I realize I suck at this. There was like a few years ago, many years ago, I want to say it was like 2012 or 2013, there was a panel of congressional members, but I think a lot of them were former, and they put on a big UFO symposium talking thing to them. And you can go watch it. I think if you just look up UFO hearing 2013, 2012, I'm wanting to say it was around then. Richard Dolan spoke at it. Grant Cameron, Greer spoke at it. I'm wanting to say it was like 2012, 2013. I bring that up because it was like former Congress people. It wasn't like active Congress people that were part of that panel, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure I'm right about that because I looked up some of the panel persons that were part of the Congress, that were part of the listening party of panel that were in that hearing. And if you even want to call it a hearing, more like a briefing. And they were all like past representatives. So why am I bringing that up? These are active representatives. And you have Eric Davis sitting here. So let's help them. So that part where we're saying we're going to back up and catch people up. Eric Davis, he said he started out around the mid-90s on UAP, and he was hired by Robert Bigelow. Robert Bigelow was heading NIDS, and NIDS. For people who know what that is, that's the National Institute for Discovery Science. That was set up, and he brought in Eric, and Eric is this astrophysicist, and he brings him in to be the director of aerospace physics and astrophysics for NIDS, and he's part of this program, to do this research, and that's who Eric is. And Eric is, again, he's exhaustive. He's very, if Joe Rogan ever has him on, it's going to be a hard one to listen to, because if he talks to Eric Davis for 3 hours, I can only take about 20 minutes of Eric Davis. And that's no slight on Eric Davis. It's just, he is such, once you open the door of information, it's a bombardment of information. It's kind of like when you sit and listen to Danny Sheehan. After about 20 minutes of listening to Danny Sheehan, you want to go drink some alcohol or like find some kind of sedative. I mean, it's hard to listen to the guy because there's so much information. But yes, Davis tells them, I mean, he starts by spilling the beans on lots of stuff. He's telling them that 4-star generals had exposed SAPs, the special access programs. He tells them that the U.S. and China and Russia have had occasions where they're retrieving crash landings or even controlled landings. And then he goes all the way by saying that 4 different type of alien races have been identified. And he goes into the Nordics, the Greys, the reptilians, the insectoids. And one key thing, if you watch this, sitting beside him is Avi Loeb. And for those that don't know, Avi Loeb, I believe, is at Harvard Research. Pretty well known.
And I've done 2 interviews with him.
You have.
Great guy and
Great guy.
legitimate former advisor on the president's scientific council.
So I mean, he's a real deal, right? And so he's got Avi Loeb sitting beside him. Eric Davis does. He's got Avi Loeb sitting there, and he's got Admiral Tim Gallaudet, and they're sitting there. And you can tell if you watch when he's talking about SAPs, they're stone faced. Okay. They're just sitting there stoic. They're not really doing anything. When he starts talking about the alien races, they both, Avi Loeb changes his body position. He sits forward. He looks down there and he's smirking the whole time. And even Gallaudet is kind of got this smirk on his face. And I just bring that up because they love to talk about stigma. Yeah, there he is. They love to talk about stigma. They love to talk about, well, we can't move this conversation forward because there's a stigma around this. Eric Davis just started talking about alien races, and you both completely changed. Imagine I'm sitting here like this, and then someone starts talking about alien races beside me, and I start going like this. I mean, they really changed how they were receiving the information, along with Representative Burleson and Paulina Luna. And then when he gets done telling them about the alien races, he goes into detail. He doesn't just say, oh, well, there's Nordics and there's grays and there's reptilians. He's like, well, these are humanoid looking. And they're like, well, and Burleson's asking him questions. He's like, well, how big are they? Are they small? Are they? And he's like, oh, they're human size. They're 6 foot tall. They're 5 foot tall. I mean, he's getting very
He also
specific.
commented that they are not. There's no super tall ones that he's aware of. Like he mentioned, he hasn't aware of anything like over the 6 feet. So, but he said that the grays are like 4 feet, and the insectoids aren't actual insects. They just look like insects.
Right. And it seems like there's like a misidentification is what he's claiming. But anyways, once he gets done with that, they all break into laughter. If you watch all that, they all break into laughter because I think they go on a break and they're like, well, wow, what a time to break. So I think they were probably laughing at the comment made about, okay, this guy's talking about alien races, but it's time to take a break, folks. And they all start laughing. So I don't.
Yeah, I mean that. I think that was the most interesting part of the whole thing, and we'll get into other parts of it. I mean, there was a lot for geeks like us, but I mean, I wish there had been like a follow-up question to that because they kind of just dropped it. And like that's a pretty huge bombshell. Because anyone that doesn't know, he's also the guy from the Wilson Davis memo.
Yeah.
Which I'll just put up here quickly. If anyone's not aware of what this famous leaked memo was, you can search this up online. But this has been submitted to Congress too as a legit memo, which Lou kind of, as he's introducing Davis, admits that it was a legit memo.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because this is not the first time we've talked about alien races from someone high up. So a lot of people forget, may he rest in peace, you're in Canada, Hannibal, your previous Minister of National Defense, Paul Hellyer,
who I interviewed.
Yeah.
Who I actually interviewed. Yeah.
He brought up alien races, right? So, I mean, this is not a new thing.
Yeah, and I was shocked that he talked about it so clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of alien, you know how we were talking the other week about people that look like aliens?
Yeah.
Paul Hellyer, and I love the guy.
Yeah.
And that's still to this day my favorite interview I've ever done.
Yeah.
I met him when he was like 96, and I believe I had the most extensive interview of his career on the UFOs. But he was sharp as a tack.
Mm-hmm.
But his eyes, like if you look at his eyes, there's something about him that kind of reminds me that could he be an alien somehow? To be that sharp at 96 and to be one of the first, the highest ranking first official to come out on record that said UFOs are as real as airplanes in the sky. And by the way, he was also a pilot. He actually, I believe, separated the Navy and the Air Force in Canada when he was Minister of Defense. That's one of the things he was known for. So this guy knows a thing or two about.
Oh yeah,
flying.
I mean, I've never made it that level, right? I don't know about anyone else that's made it to Minister of National Defense for a major country, but you're right. He speaks definitively. Like, I mean, he is like here's who the races are. We have agreements with some of them. We work with some of them. The U.S. has relationships with some of them. He spoke very completely on the subject. So for people to laugh it off, it's like, you can laugh it off. That's fine. It does not erase that there is a former minister of national defense for a major country sitting here telling you these things. So again, we talked about this on our last update. At what point did we have the conversation about high-ranking officials being psycho? If that's where we want to go with this and we want to call all these people psycho, okay, let's do that. They're all psycho. Now let's have that conversation about, why are all these high-ranking officials psycho? Why is Chris Mellon sitting there, who was high up in national security and national defense of the United States, psycho? Lou Elizondo sitting there, made it up to higher ranking, psycho. You have Hal Puthoff. For those that don't know Hal Puthoff, we're going to get into his Joe Rogan conversation in a minute. But even Hal was way up there. He was in the NSA, psycho. So, okay, fine. Yeah. You want to call these people psycho? Let's move on.
Here's Paul Hellyer, by the way, anyone that doesn't know him. And the funny thing about that interview was, I actually worked 3.5 years to get that interview.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to get. And when he booked it, it was like 6 months in advance. It's like, meet me at my penthouse, Toronto Harbor, 7:30 a.m., August something. It was like, this guy 6 months out has such a schedule that he's going to book me at this time in the morning this far out.
There you go.
I found it amazing. But
that's awesome.
What a rush. I mean, I remember I wrestled the night before, drove to his house with a friend overnight to get there on time. And I wasn't tired at all on the drive back. I had such a
adrenaline pump. Yeah.
Yeah, because I felt like I was with like someone super special. So a historical figure.
And he absolutely is. And, if I'm not mistaken, he sat in front of your government's, one of your government's councils, and was one of the first to sit in front of them and acknowledge this. And he got applauded for it. I remember watching the hearing. If people go YouTube Paul Hellyer, I'm sure you can watch where he openly sits in front of, I'm pretty sure it's like, I don't know how your government specifically set up. I don't know the civics in your country very well, but he was sitting in front of Canadian government leadership.
Parliament. He went before Parliament, I believe, and said it. And I'll just play. I'll play this clip from this interview for people that may not have seen it. This clip has 1.5 million views, or 1.6 million now. For anyone that hasn't seen this is just worth watching.
My nephew and said, give me the general's telephone number and give him a heads up that I'll be calling. Because I thought I should check with him personally and hear his voice and what he had to say. And I had met him, so I knew who it was. And so I phoned him, and before I could even say, hello, how are you? What's the weather like? He said, every word is true and more. Those were his opening words. And he spent 20 minutes telling me the and more within the limit of his oath. I guess it went as far as he could. And he said, and this was the most important thing he said during that period, was that there have been face-to-face meetings between United States officials and visitors from other star systems.
So we'll leave it at that. You guys could search up the full interview at the Hannibal TV. But, I mean, he's 96 there. He died less than 2 years later, but it's like, he's just going to say it. He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to give it to him. And, again, it's not just him. It's not just Paul Hellyer. It's now permeating into the American government. We've heard a lot of mention lately of the Israeli government. That's come out, where there are defense ministers in Israel who are saying the same thing.
Head Hayam Mashed.
Yeah.
I might be mispronouncing it, but he said that there is communication with officials. And I
Yeah.
mean, this guy actually, I guess, was head of the equivalent of the NASA of
Yeah.
Israel.
Yeah. So, I mean, at what point where is going to be the breaking point where we say, wow, um, how many more high ranking officials have to come forward and acknowledge something like this? And again, we don't have to get into belief of aliens and UFOs. Fine. Don't worry about that part. We're just talking about high ranking people coming forward and having these type of interactions. And that to me is more astounding than anything else. And, that kind of leads into, we can go into our next subject. I don't know if I have
I
anything
just want to
else to
say
touch
one
on.
thing about that.
Yeah.
Mike Gold, I was not a big fan of his congressional hearing testimony when he testified about a year ago or so. He did great on this. He was a bit long winded,
Mm-hmm.
but he showed that Mars tic tac.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed that thing on the moon that lights,
Mm-hmm.
and he was basically saying he does not believe it's space dust, like what they're calling the official explanation, and another picture of lights that he said are unidentified. So he was being very open, where he was being more. He didn't really reveal too much in his official congressional hearing testimony, but here he's showing pictures, and he's basically saying they do have more stuff at NASA that has not been released public yet, but there has been stuff like this Mars Tic Tac picture that is a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good picture.
It
It's
is.
just nobody's saying anything about it. Why this is? How can people not care about this? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's going to take, if you ask me, just to go off a little bit here, it's going to take like something like the James Webb Telescope. I really feel like it's going to be that. That platform is going to be what moves the conversation forward because it's a more high level entry into disclosure. You don't disclose something to people by saying, hey, there is interdimensional beings. They pop into your bedroom at night and they look at you and they may extract things from you sexually. You don't disclose aliens to people like that because you're going to freak them the hell out. What you do, and if that's true, what you do is you tell them, hey, James Webb Telescope, it just picked up a planet, and it does this all the time in the Goldilocks zone. It's a planet in the habitable zone from its star. And you know what? There are gases and things coming and emitting off of that planet that can only be produced by living organisms. And another article just got posted about that here within the last week or two. And it's constant. It's every quarter, every month or every quarter, we hear about some new planet popping up that, they've identified what could be life. I think that's probably where we're going to get our entry into alien life. Now, when I say alien life, I'm not talking about Greys, Nordics, reptilians, and things like that. It could lead to that, but I'm just saying like it'll be something like small. We'll get the initial disclosure will be James Webb, in my opinion. James Webb Telescope has picked up life. We have confirmed there's life. The definition of life is it's just these organisms that live on that planet. It could be something very, very small. I don't know. Maybe it has oceans and it has ocean life. And they're like, we're picking up, I don't know, crustaceans or something. Like something lives on that planet and it's enough life for us to be able to call it alien. Do we think it's intelligent life? We don't know yet. But that will be our initial opening to alien
And
life.
and this reminds me, this is a very short clip from Paul Hellyer
Mm-hmm.
that I'll share on what he had to say about NASA, which was very interesting.
My correspondence from Hungary keeps saying that I'm not telling the truth, and he'll quote NASA. And NASA will be putting out story after story saying they've just discovered a planet which might have sentient life on it. And in the Toronto Star, I think it was, had life could be found in 10 years. This is deliberate disinformation, because NASA knows darn well that these things are real and that they've seen them and recorded them, and they've played cover up ever since. And these stories are put out to fool people like my correspondent. And I finally just say, look, you either have to believe the liars or believe me.
So I mean that is kind of funny. Hey, we found a little bit of life on this far off planet. Meanwhile, we're being visited here.
Yeah. And that's why I don't think we're going to find out in this way that Eric Davis is telling a congressperson, sitting there telling them, and they're nodding along and listening. Hey, there's 4 different types of alien species that have been identified, and here's their height, weight, measurements, their hobbies. You know, he's going in detail. He didn't say their hobbies, but he's going into detail on these species, and people don't even realize it. And I don't know if that's people's fault because, again, Anna Paulina Luna and Burleson, these House Representative members, Burchett, none of them, they did not even recognize it as far as like publicizing it and saying that they were there. So it's a little harsh to move it forward. But one big thing that came out of that hearing, and this is the thing that's been creating shockwaves across the community, not as much really as Eric Davis's talking about 4 alien species, because he didn't have any proof, right? He's just saying what he's heard. To me, when I listen to him, he's just talking about what he's been told, right? He didn't say he met one, right?
No, but
Yeah.
if you look at his background, I mean, why would he lie about that? So I would have to take
Absolutely.
him for his word.
I agree with you. I'm just saying he didn't say, yeah, I met one of
Yeah.
the reptilians, but the big thing that came out of this is poor Lou, man. Lou is back on.
Oh yeah, they really don't like him, do they?
Oh
And
my
he,
gosh.
yeah,
I,
God bless.
I don't know if you have the picture available of what he showed. I know you posted a short video on it of the video that he showed from a pilot. Yes,
Yeah,
there.
I mean, before I found out about all this, he did show this picture, and I mean, I'm leaving it up because his point is still valid. That
Yeah.
there are things that are unusual, and whether they're fake or not, like people are seeing this stuff. So he's just saying investigate it so we can get answers like this. And by the way, Lou apologized for the misunderstanding, but he did say the photo had not yet been vetted, and people are missing the point. And it seems like
Yeah.
the what is it, the Black Vault guy really has it out for Lou. He used to like, he appeared on his channel, but now he
Yeah.
like seems
John
to go
Greenwald.
after. Yeah, now he like goes after him, and it's like,
Well, so here's the thing is I can see both sides. I kind of see what Lou's talking about. Lou is trying to say, look, I showed this photo not as a context of like, hey, here is a UFO, an alien ship. He's claiming that he showed it in the context of saying that this was photographed by an airline pilot, and he's sharing it under the context of pilots don't have a formal means of reporting UAP. That's what he's saying. He released the picture under that context. He's saying y'all are getting hung up on the photo and whether it's real or not. That's not where I'm trying to go with this. I'm trying to go with it to say pilots don't have a formal reporting process of how to report UAP. Everyone's hung up on this though because it's so obvious that is the irrigation circles. And for those that don't know what that is, all you have to do is just go on Google Earth or go on Google Maps and go into Earth mode or whatever, where you can see satellite imagery. Go into satellite mode and go out west, go out in New Mexico, and go look around Roswell. Just go look up Roswell, go look up Albuquerque, and zoom out, and you're going to see these little circles all over the Earth's surface, everywhere out there. It's irrigation circles out there, and what this was there was a dark irrigation circle beside a light irrigation circle. So what that picture looks like is it looks like the UFO is casting a shadow, and actually it's two of those irrigation circles side by side. And they've even found it on the map. Yeah, they've even found that area on a map. Somebody's found the exact location. You can kind of see a little street coming in there. You see the road coming up. So someone was able to find out where that was on the map and show him that still exists today on satellite imagery, those two irrigation circles. So the reason why he's getting beef for this is he also shared a photo as a UFO a while back, and it was nothing but the glare of a lampshade. And he's kind of admitted a mistake to that too. So see what I'm saying? I can kind of see both sides. He's saying, look, you're taking me out of context. We're talking about the context of pilots not having a formal process, like the Ryan Graves thing. Ryan Graves is talking about this, safe aviation type work where he's trying to give pilots a way to report things. He's like, that was my context. My context was not, hey, look at this UFO ship. But everybody's saying, yeah, but you were in front of Congress. You should have really just not showed it at all, because all you're showing here are irrigation circles. You're not showing craft. So that X has been blowing up. Poor Lou is they are dragging him this week, man. The last 2 days it's been rough for Lou. People saying his credibility's now shot.
No, it's not shot at all, but the haters are just going to go after him more.
Yeah.
The only thing I wonder is if there is and this is my conspiracy theory side,
mm-hmm.
if there's a chance he is legitimately working as a disinformation agent, that he's
mm-hmm.
purposely put out two fake things to hurt his own credibility, to make the whole thing seem like, okay, there's explanations for all of this. He's not.
You're onto something there.
Yeah.
And let me explain why you're onto something. That has been proposed recently, that a good way to shut this up is to put out, okay, so like with Jake at Skywatcher, Jake Barber, he's the one that did the egg retrieval video with Ross Coulthart in January. He recently came out with some videos of just some lights in the sky where he was trying to insinuate it's anomalous. And I've seen this theory floated out there. It's like, he's also someone who was doing redirect type work, intelligent works for the government. Remember, Jake Barber said that he went to Stephen Greer's National Press Club event where Michael Herrera came out, DC Long came out. He went to that event to intercept Michael Herrera, to intercept him and redirect him. So he has ran operations to redirect people who are getting ready to spill the beans about special access programs and things like that. So some people are wondering what you just said, Hannibal, is that the same thing as what's going on there? Is that they're intentionally putting out bullshit to get us to fight, get fed up inside the community. So what we do is we fight about it. They put it out. It's horse shit. And we all go, wow, look at this. It's this crap. We get mad at each other, and then we just disengage, and then we just leave the topic alone. If that is the mission of like Lou and the Jake Barber types, is just to go in there, set a grenade, and then just pull out of the cave and let it blow up, then it's working great. Because Jake puts out his video of like little lights that could be anything. It could be anything. It could have been a distant lamp or a distant street light. It could have been airliners coming in and they were lined up. Here in Charlotte, when they come into the major airport, you will see 5, 6, 7 lights lined up in the sky as they get ready to come in and land. And he was showing lights in a linear fashion. Those could have been flares. They could have been airliners landing. It could have been anything. And all he did was just show lights in the sky. And then you see Lou posting this, and it does make you wonder that I'm not saying I believe that, but you have to at least like give a small percentage of possibility that they're doing that.
I mean, I would have to think that is a possibility because he
Yeah.
already had the one screw up. Why wouldn't you check a little harder before this one? I don't know. He's a really smart guy,
Yeah.
and
That's
I
what
like
everybody's
him.
saying. Yeah.
I wish I could get an interview with him sometime. I
Hmm.
hope I do. I'm not giving up on it, but he's a hard guy to get in contact with. But I like him. I don't go after him or anything, but I do suspect. I mean, I truly suspect that in some ways.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's a possibility. And he's kind of getting what you just said. And I'll let you go after him and then I'll be the bad guy. How about we do that? We'll do good cop, bad cop. You be the good cop and I'll be the bad cop on this for Lou. There's a very well known person in the UFO community. She's the UFO rabbit hole lady. I can't think of her name, but she does a really good podcast. If you just look up UFO rabbit hole on like YouTube, I'm sure it'll take you to her stuff. But she asked that question kind of the same way you just did. Is someone had made a statement of, well, we're on to the next one. Oh well, this one was debunked. On to the next photo. And her name's Kelly Chase, maybe that's her name. She goes under that UFO rabbit hole name. Um, and she said, yeah, you're saying, okay, this one was debunked, on to the next one, but can we pause for a second and like ask why? Why are we continuing to, why are we not vetting this stuff? Why are we putting out crap? Like what you just said, Hannibal, why are we, he already did one where he messed up and put out a lampshade as a UFO. Why did he not do his due diligence and check this photo first before he went in front of congressional members and showed them another BS photo? It's like, why? And she asked that, and Lou blocked her. Lou blocked her on X. And everyone also got really mad at Lou for that because they're like, she's being polite to you. She's asking, she wasn't mean to him. She wasn't like on there like, hey, you dumbass. There you go. Why did you put out another dumbass photo, dumbass? She wasn't being like that to him. She was very respectful. She's just like, I don't want to move on to the next BS photo. I want to like talk about this one for a second. Like, why does this keep happening? And she got blocked. And I think Lou tried to claim his account was hacked, and he didn't block her, and he unblocked her. So it's been a mess, this whole thing. Maybe
People like
that's
to go
why.
after him for
Yeah.
sure. But did you ever see his interview with Engaging the Phenomenon they did let me post a few clips on here of that. Lou does have a temper and he
Oh yeah.
gets flustered. And when he gets flustered, I mean there's some clips in that Engaging the Phenomenon
Yeah.
podcast with
So
Lou. When he's talking about Greer actually too, he just
yeah.
gets completely flustered and he at one point he said you stumped me or something.
Yeah.
Like he was
So
like he
here's my problem with Lou, and here's my only critique, and this is just my critique. It everyone's different. If you've seen one Lou interview, you've seen them all. It's hard for me to watch them all because Lou, when he came out with Imminent, his book, he did his podcast tour, right? And he went on Joe Rogan, and then he started doing all the podcasts. And I swear to God, and I mean, it's nothing against him. He's probably in a routine of doing podcasts. He can't help but tell some of the same stories, right? He's human. He can't help but say some of the same stuff because he's being put into the same forum on a podcast. His opening, the body of his content and his close, it's the exact same thing in every podcast, almost sometimes down to the word. So it's really hard for me to like watch every Lou interview. I did not watch the Engaging Phenomenon one. I'm sorry. It's just because I watched the whole Joe one, and then I started watching one of the like when he was on with Jesse Michaels, and I started watching another one where he's on with
I've
maybe.
seen them all. I can probably tell you I've seen them all.
But did you not pick up on some of the repetition where he?
Oh yeah. But the one thing I will mention about the Jesse Michaels is in at the end of that one, he does say that there was an imminent event coming, and then he later
Yeah.
took that back. But I'll just play a clip from this because I'm friends with the Engaging the Phenomenon guy, who I think you would do a great interview with. But just where he gets really flustered on certain questions, which if you haven't seen this, this is kind of funny. There we
It
go.
drives me nuts because that's you're no longer leading a conversation. You're a cult. You're trying to control people's thought processes and behaviors, and worse, you're extorting money from them. That I can't stand. And anybody who wants to do that, fine. You want to give your money to somebody, fine. But my recommendation is you're better off giving it to a charity. At least they'll do something positive with it.
Cognitive human interface. What did that mean to ATIP?
Well, I think you know what that means to ATIP. That's kind of your CE5 now, isn't it?
So was something like that, I guess, observed in all the studies and the cases?
James, I'm gonna take a Heisman pass on that.
Sure.
Because again, I'll let experts speak to that.
Sure. Is there anything you can say to that at all?
Well, I'm doing your interview, aren't I?
Wonderfully said. Okay, what about
for all those people out there who say Lou doesn't give CE5 any credence? Well, you've never asked.
I was going to say this. I mean, cognitive human interface. That's just. I mean, we could just call that CHI instead of CE5, right? What about penetration through solid surfaces? That sounds interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Would that also fall under transmedium?
Yeah, absolutely. If you understand the mathematics, like some of our guys do, there's some theories that potentially stipulate that mass and matter and energy is a bit relative. And again, I'll allow the physicists to expound upon that. But yeah, certainly something worth looking into.
Yeah, and then there was, I guess this just relates to the other one, is unique cognitive human interface experiences. So that's almost like ATIP saying contact experiences. Fair. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I found these slides fascinating, and I don't know why more people are not talking about them. It says DoD has been involved in similar experiences in the past. I don't know if you're familiar with anything like that. Okay, enough of that. Sorry about that.
No, I apologize. Just
really interesting slide. I'll say anybody that knows ATIP slide 9. Read in between the lines. There's no lines there, but if you read in between them, you can probably learn a lot.
In the early days, ATIP was looking at a lot of things. I think that's fair and accurate to say.
Is there a chance, like if UAP task force is made a permanent body, is that kind of a continuation of ATIP?
Of course it is. I mean, I won't go into detail. The people that are a lot of the folks that are involved with the UAP task force were part of ATIP. I mean,
yeah,
they're buddies. I can call them on the phone if I want to.
Would you be able to get re-involved at that point, or you wouldn't want to?
It depends where I'm most effective. I've got a voice that
right there. Someone just says Lou seems agitated.
Yeah, he gets weird in this. It's almost over, but
I have less authority, but perhaps
he gets very uncomfortable in this.
And so at some point it's going to depend
good for James.
What is the best way for me to continue to have
at the end,
productive conversation.
He taps out of the interview. It's kind of funny.
I don't want
and
this to be some sort of forgive me, Jerry Springer event. I'm not trying to create drama. I just want answers provided to the people that they paid for with their tax money, the taxpayer paid efforts. I want.
That's what you were just saying.
I want solutions. I want that. I want the data that you paid for provided to you.
Oh man, I wanted to. And I don't know if you can comment on the spatial temporal translation. What does that mean?
When? Well, James, you have succeeded in making me squirm. So congratulations.
Yeah, so I mean that's a very interesting. As I said, you say his interviews are repetitive. James had some amazing questions there. He's a little like you.
But he's
very
just
familiar.
stonewalling him. Yeah, he's just
Yeah,
stonewalling him, right? So I mean, it's like because James. I mean, credit to James. He's coming at him with stuff that no one else has asked, right?
yeah, but I could see if he's in that flustered state and there's some woman like he should have just said he blocked her.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
face it, if someone hacked his account, it would be more than blocking a YouTuber that they would do.
And what he's talking about with the physicist, I mean, he's essentially talking about Hal Puthoff and people like that. And you know, again, Hal was on uh, James, sorry, got James on the brain. Joe Rogan's podcast this week. So for those who haven't watched it, again, um, you have to kind of.
There is a lot of talk on that about remote
Mm-hmm,
viewing, and I have to admit I'm about I think an hour in now,
mm-hmm.
and so far it's pretty much mostly remote viewing, but it's starting to get into the alien talk.
And I'm not even worried about the alien stuff. I mean, the alien stuff is what it is. If he said there was a base somewhere, fine. If he saw a craft, fine. Everybody has now. This remote viewing stuff, you know, as we kind of finish out this session, I think that is where ufology is headed. We're much more moving away from craft. So what happened with Jake Barber is when Jake Barber came along in January, he's talking about this. This extrasensory perception, right? And about receiving some visceral event from this alien craft as he captured it with his helicopter, you know, and he's talking about that. And now he's talking about psionics and he's introducing the community to that. And it's kind of coming full circle, right? And for those that don't know about Hal Puthoff, again, this guy was he says it in Joe Rogan's podcast. He was part of the NSA and he was a naval intelligence officer and he had a master's and PhD in his work and high level security
Worked
clearances.
for Robert Bigelow as well.
He said that
is he still with To the Stars? But he's one of the founders of To the Stars, wasn't he?
yeah, or like a board member or something. But yeah, he was part of that coming out party. And but for those that don't know, really quick, how he started. If people are like, how did Hal Puthoff get into this? Ingo Swann. So he was the psychic. So Hal was over here doing some studies and everything, and Ingo Swann reaches out to him. And Ingo Swann is a psychic, and he's part of who was studied during the Stargate project with the CIA. That's on CIA.gov's website. That's not hearsay. And Ingo Swann reaches out to him and says, hey, why don't you come study me? I just had a recent paper come out about where I was studied and I was able to change temperature settings or change temperatures on these devices using ESP. You know, you should come study me. So they set up a Stanford research project, Hal does, and they put him in one of those like cage situations where you're like 7 layers deep of like all these different layers of like protection to where no type of signal can come in or out of that cage. And they run tests on Ingo Swann to see if he can do things. And not only was he able to he was able to change like the devices that were used to measure him. So imagine you have a computer sitting there and it's got these oscillating devices on the inside of it, and he can change on demand the oscillation of those devices with ESP, and he's doing it and saying it as he's doing it. Like, I can slow it down and it would slow down, and I can speed it up and it would speed up. And so he does this, and he does it on demand, and they capture it, and Hal Puthoff writes a paper about it, and the CIA finds about it. And the CIA goes, okay, we have a situation here. The Russians are spending millions of dollars on this type of espionage. It's you hear them called like what Joe McGonigal did. Joe McGonigal was on Sean Ryan's show, a psychic spy. I think he was even on with Jesse too. So the Russians were starting to use these psychic spies, and the U.S. government found out about it, and they wanted someone like Hal to help them like run a program. Like, we need to figure out if you can debunk this. Is this part of something? And he helped them kind of set up that program, and that's where you see the document that people can look it up called the Stargate Project. And you can see the dollars that were appropriated to the from the DIA, which was the Defense Intelligence Agency. You can see in the document they talk about appropriating millions of dollars to that project. And for those that, if you watch the Joe Rogan podcast, one thing that was interesting about it, he shared a picture of what Joe McGonigal did, and it's amazing if it is true, because
Is that the submarine picture?
Mhm.
Yeah, that was pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, he pretty much and for those that don't know, again, Joe McGonigal, you can go look up where he talked to Sean Ryan, and I think he even did a Jesse Michaels one. But these were people that once Hal met with the CIA and they found out about it, they said, well, we need to get some of our own people, in on this program. And they started recruiting from the Army. And that's where Joe came in. And they set up trainings and protocol for being able to do this remote viewing. And Joe drew a picture of a very large submarine. And they had to report this to the NSC, the National Security Council. Hal had to report this up, and they said, oh, this is BS. This thing doesn't exist. He drew this Soviet submarine that was the biggest submarine in existence with the missile silos on top, and he drew it. And they even showed the photo of where he drew it. And eventually, later on, it did come out that it was debuted by the Soviets, that that submarine was actually rolled out and put into production. And these type of things led to Joe being awarded all these things for helping out in the intelligence community.
Yeah, over 70 or something, over 70 things.
Yeah.
This is the submarine. This is the picture that he drew before this submarine was discovered.
So the one there on the top left,
Yeah.
the one on the bottom left is probably more, that's not what would come out of a. So if people think remote viewing is not going to be what's on the bottom left there. That's the actual diagram of like that type of submarine. The top left, that is what comes out of a remote viewing. Remote viewing is it's again, Hal Puthoff says it's more visceral, meaning it's more your feelings of what you feel, what you see. You're not supposed to sit down and actually give it a structure. You're not supposed to say, well, I'm drawing out a submarine because I see it. You're not supposed to do that. You're just supposed to kind of give it form and figure. And then after the fact, you try to look at that. And if these things are true, that's pretty amazing, right?
He also predicted that there was a ring around Jupiter that no one believed, and then there happened to be one. Now, I didn't see this part of the Hal Puthoff interview, but what did he say about a UFO base in Australia?
Yeah, I didn't either. I've not. That's one where I was just made aware of the Joe Rogan interview with Hal Puthoff like a day or two ago, and it's been a busy week for me. So I've been more focused.
There's a lot to get through. There was this weaponized whistleblower out too, which was
watch that.
A lot of fluff in it, but
yeah.
And next week, like they delay. I don't like people that like. At least we're getting to the points of things.
Yeah,
we're not like building up, but you don't actually give the payoff. You just give a little bit of a payoff, and hey, by the way, you got to tune back in next week. But the big thing he talked about was it appeared the most relevant thing. This guy used to work for the Pentagon. The whistleblower that was on with
he
George
was
Knapp.
The author of the Immaculate Constellation Report.
Okay, there we go. Well, they talked a small bit about that, but the big thing that was interesting to me was that I guess the U.S. was spying on Russian vessels.
Yeah,
and it appeared that there was a set-up meeting between Russian vessels, 3 of them, and a black triangle, super large UFO that appeared in the air over these vessels and it appeared like this was some sort of communication going on there before it disappeared back into thin air. And I guess the U.S. has proof of this, that this actually occurred. I'd like to see the video of this. So it was either a very high-tech Russian black triangle UFO, or there was some sort of meeting, which Paul Hellyer said there's been meetings with governments and UFOs. Same with the Israeli general. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe there was a meeting between Russians and aliens.
Yeah, and see, that's my problem in a lot of this stuff is David Grush and this new whistleblower that was on with George and Jeremy this week. They kind of got both of them to admit that they had some interest in UFOs. And that's my problem. I want you to come from a place where I almost just want you to just lie to me. Just tell me that you had no interest in UFOs and it was not part of your lexicon. You didn't talk about UFOs. You don't know any of the terminologies. If someone looks at you and says, "Do you know what UAP stands for or what the UAPDF is?" and you go, "What the hell are you talking about?" Perfect. Because if you're coming to us with this information, then you're coming from a place where it's nothing emotional for you or that you don't have any vested interest in. And they ask him, they kind of dig into that, Jeremy and George, which I'm surprised. So that makes me almost feel like George and Jeremy don't have an agenda here, because they kind of asked him, they're like, "Were you ever interested about UFOs?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've always kind of been interested in UFOs." And I'm like, "Oh, you just said the thing that you're not supposed to say if you're coming out whistleblowing, because they're going to use that against you, right?" Oh, well, this guy's...
They also said that he could be subject to execution for breaking his disclosure, whatever he signed, whatever oath he made. And it's just weird to me that he'd be coming out, even though he's subject to execution. And if it's that big, why do they drag it out into two parts? Because if he's breaking the law, wouldn't the government be able to have that one taken down immediately?
Yeah, and I mean that is the question, is why. So if these people are coming out, and let's say this is some coordinated effort, they're doing a really good job at messing with us, because they're coming out at risk to themselves. But if it's agreed upon that the government knows that David Grush and these whistleblowers are going to come out and they're like, "Look, this is part of this campaign, this PSYOP that we're doing, so it's fine. And when you come out, you have to talk bad about us," right? So if I'm going to come out against Hannibal and Hannibal knows that I'm coming out against him, I got to say something bad about you too, so that people think that I got a problem with you. And, like when Grush came out and he said, "Oh yeah, there's been reprisals and people have been hurt and people have been killed." Maybe that's part of what he's being told to say. Like, look, you got to say some bad shit about us to throw people off to where they'll go, "Oh, well, he's a disinfo guy. He's running a PSYOP." Well, no, he just said people have been killed over this. So why would he say that? Why would he put his life in jeopardy? There you go. I mean, you asked the question. I think that's what it is. I think that there is some coordination here. I just don't know at what level. I think the government knows exactly that these people are coming forward. And I don't think our government is dumb enough to just be caught off guard by any David Grush. Because he goes into this, right? The whistleblower said that this week. He said that David Grush, you get in trouble for talking about him. I didn't know if you watched through the whole interview.
But I did watch the entire interview of that. Yeah.
Yeah, he said,
and they would be well aware that this would happen. With today's technology, you could monitor cell phones very easily. Like, they could have stopped that interview from taking place.
You do not have that TSSCI, whatever that top secret security clearance, or whatever it all stands for, top secret clearances. You don't have that with exactly what you just said. Being able to have the ability to monitor these people in all that they do, their text, and they probably know that. They're probably told, "Look, you have top secret security clearance. You have to be made aware that you are giving up some of your private life, because we have to be able to tap into you and make sure you're not talking to the Soviets, make sure that you've not been compromised. And they probably tell them it's for their own safety. It's for your own safety, because if the Russian government reaches out to you and says, hey, we know where your wife is and we're going to kill you unless you tell us this, this, and this. Well, if we're monitoring that person's line on our end of the deal, then we're actually going to save them, even though we were wiretapping them. So they're probably told, look, you are monitored. Your texts are monitored. Your emails are monitored. Just be aware. We don't care that you're sitting here talking about X, Y, and Z or something porn related or what else. Fine. That's your personal life. We're not going to expose you for that. But the minute you say something about something that's part of that top secret security clearance, we're coming after you. I believe that. I don't think that these people just get to walk out of the Pentagon and start talking. I'm sorry. You'll never get me to believe that. So people like David Grush and this whistleblower with Jeremy and George this week, they can say all day long that they have this noble thing or this noble goal that they have that they want to reach of, being transparent and shedding light on this. That's one thing. We can talk about psionics and all that other stuff, and I'll be open-minded. I am not open-minded to people saying, yes, I strolled out of the Pentagon, and now I'm taking on a multi-trillion-dollar behemoth that they can't even account for the trillions that they spend, according to Donald Rumsfeld. You're talking about a massive, probably one of the most massive, most dangerous enterprises in this world is our Department of Defense and the Pentagon. No, you're not going to convince me that this little guy just walked out of there and you're just going to take them on and you're going to say, look, they're killing people and I'm happy to take them on. No,
this is kind of a soft disclosure, I believe. I mean, they could easily stop this, as you said.
Yeah, there's no way he's coming out on his own volition. And that's why I just, there's some coordination going on there. Maybe it'll be exposed in its own due time. If this thread is all part of the same thing, like we just talked about earlier, with Jake Barber releasing some stuff that's not really very credible looking, Lou Elizondo releasing the lampshade and now releasing irrigation circles as UFOs. Maybe this is all part of this coordinated effort. Now you have whistleblowers coming out, and maybe these guys are just blowing this thing up from the inside, and we're supposed to be along for the ride. And that could be part of what's going on here. I don't know. But all I know is if you want to back out of all that drama, the only thing that I would say look out for disclosure, don't worry about anything these people are doing. Don't worry about anything that Jeremy Corbell's doing or Lou Elizondo's doing or Stephen Greer's doing or Hal Puthoff. Don't worry about any of that. Watch what happens with the James Webb Telescope. I'm telling you, that's going to be where we're going to get our information. That's going to be the start of it. When we see a post that says JWST, James Webb Space Telescope, has identified alien life on this planet, that's the start. Now, how the rest of these people fall in line after that, I don't know. How these camps start falling in line and coalescing around that message of, okay, alien life has been found. It's now scientifically proven. There is no wiggling out of it. It's there. There's lights on this planet. Let's say, for example, there's lights. We found it and we can show pictures of it. When that news comes out, now it's going to be about how do these other pieces start fitting together. The rest of this is just kind of us UFO people. We like following these people and just keeping up with the drama, right?
For sure. And one thing I will mention, speaking of disclosure, when you talk about Hal Puthoff, he did say in the Joe Rogan interview that this Age of Disclosure movie that hasn't been, to my knowledge, there's no way of the public seeing it yet, but it has been screened. Hal says that there's like 35 government officials similar to him, all pretty much coming out in this. And he says that he feels when that movie is released, it will be disclosure. Did you see that part where he was talking about that?
Yeah, and I think the main part of why that's not been released is, according to James Fox, they're trying to find a distributor.
Yeah.
So I guess it'll come out whenever they can get to that. But yeah, this will be a
Featuring
big deal.
34 senior government insiders, 80
Yeah,
year
so
cover-up.
we'll have to figure out how many of those are the ones.
There's your man now.
Eric Davis. Yeah.
There, and if I forget him, but he's
Jim
man,
Simivan.
all these names.
Jim Simivan, and the other guy, he just left the UAPDF. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name too. The one you just showed. There's
Anyway,
Clapper.
That it's going to be something to watch, though, for sure. I mean, Hal definitely sold me on it when he was talking about that with Joe Rogan. So I hope it is released.
And that's everybody's question is, why don't they call those CIA assets or someone over the CIA? And I'll shut up after this. Why don't they call those people into a congressional hearing and just say, hey, CIA director, answer this question. Do we have a remote viewing program? And then just see what they say. No one will ask them this stuff. Hal just laid it out about how the CIA paid for all this. We just showed the document of Project Stargate. This is real stuff. That's off the CIA.gov website. So, okay, let's start with that question. Set up a hearing with the CIA director. Was there ever a remote viewing program? And just start with that question. Make them admit it, because there's documentation. And then roll forward. When did it end? Is it still ongoing? And let's just go from there. If they say it is, what are you doing with it? What is it producing? How much money is spent to that a year? How much is allocated? How much is appropriated from the budget? In that DIA documentation for Stargate, they talk about the specific allocation from the DIA to approve the program for Project Stargate. So, I mean, again, set these people down and ask some real questions. They won't do it. They won't sit them down and talk about it. Why won't they talk about it? There must be a there. They can't. They are being told, they're being briefed behind the scenes. We have heard this from Tim Burchett and others. Representative Mace has talked about this, where they have been told, don't talk to this person. Or in the hearing.
And one interesting thing that was actually brought up in that hearing on the panel discussion, speaking of this, because I've heard Burchett talk about it as well, that they'll bring them now into skiffs and tell them information that they know they already know, just so they can't talk about it. It's called retro classifying stuff. So that's why Tim is trying to, in some cases, not even go into the skiffs, because it's like, well, you already know this, you can talk about it now, but once we tell you about it again and you sign, you can't say anything in here. You're now banned from talking about it.
Yeah, it's a weird game what's going on. And all I know is that these parties that are involved are, when talking about Congress, they're getting very crafty about the things they're doing, and some of them are starting to escalate the issue, and some of them are starting to step back. So you're seeing Tim Burchett kind of step back a little bit. Who else used to lead on this?
The one thing about
Rubio.
Tim was we haven't seen Rubio, but if you look at Tim's body language too in the panel, he made the one joke during Avi Loeb's, but he was making himself look really tired through most of it, and I'm sure he's busy, and he is, and then he just disappears.
He disappears, and that's what so much of the hearing, if you watch it, they're moving, they're going back and forth, they're not really paying attention. The only ones that really sit there intently and listen are Burleson. Luna's missing during some of it. Burchett is missing during some of it. They're tuning out during most of it. Body language means a lot. If I'm sitting there presenting to you and you're in front of me and you're presenting and I'm just like doing like this the whole time, I'm telling you, body language means a lot. They were tuned out during a lot of it. Now, some of it where Rep Luna was sitting, there's some funny memes going around where Representative Luna was sitting beside of Eric Davis and she's like locked in on him. So I'm not saying the whole thing, they were just like tuned out, but they were doing a lot of tuning out. So I did not pick up from it that they were taking it that serious, and they laughed at Eric Davis's stuff with the alien races. He's telling them flat out there's programs and that 4-star generals have identified these programs that are doing these crash retrievals and these reverse engineerings. Hal Puthoff has gone into this before. Hal Puthoff talks about in Joe Rogan's podcast about them going through this exercise about 20 years ago, where they were tasked with coming up with a mitigation plan about how do you do a disclosure. If we were to come out and tell people that, yes, there are aliens and we have crash retrievals, we need to go through every category, the economy, religion, social sciences and interactions and things like that, and go through it all. And we need to score it on a scale of -9 through +9. And we need to score the impact, negative and positive. And Hal said that everyone in that room scored every category negative on how this news breaking would impact our society. And they decided that it would be a no-go. And again, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. Is like, if that's what's going on behind the scenes, then what are we even doing here? Because if there's these gatekeepers, like what everybody keeps talking about, they're not going to let the subject move forward because it's too detrimental. I mean, as you can see, Donald Trump can say a couple words and the Dow drops 1,000 points. So you can imagine the fluctuations that would be at play if you told people the truth about some of this earth-shattering information, right?
And by the way, just quickly, here's the list of the cast of that Age of Disclosure. So some names there that we all know, and maybe combined, it will actually add up to something. So I'm real excited about seeing that. One interesting thing, David Grush has been missing to wrap this up here, and I just searched it up on AI. Perhaps his lawsuit was settled in October 2024. This is just speculation because there's been no further information on it since October 2024. And who knows? That's just a possibility, because often when settlements occur that are undisclosed, the person has to sign something to not further talk. So who knows where he's been, but he's been awful quiet lately.
Yeah. And, we've seen this before, right? Lou went MIA too for like a year or two. And what was he doing? He was in his DOPSR process of going through the Pentagon to get approvals to write his book. And he just went quiet, right? He went silent and we didn't hear from him. It was like, where's Lou? Lou pops up in 2017 and for 2 years straight, he's on everything. And then all of a sudden he goes MIA for a couple of years. Well, he was going through the DOPSR process of being able to get approved what he wants to say in his book, and he was writing his book. Okay. So I kind of wondered the same thing. Either he's going through, I heard about this legal event. Maybe he's going through a back and forth and they told him to lay low, but it could have been for what's going on right now too, where they told him, look, we're going to position you inside of, working on a congressional staff and helping them behind the scenes, but we need you to lay low. So that you can work more inside of that staff without all the noise of doing podcasts. And he was supposed to write a piece in one of the well-known newspapers like NY Times or something. He was supposed to do something that would get some major airplay and put this article out, this op-ed, and I don't think he ever did that. So it's probably all tied into that. But again, I think people need to zoom out sometimes and figure out, why is this all being done? Why is this message being put out the way that it is?
And just to answer this fan question, my only alien contact has been through dreams. So no, I've not seen any aliens personally. Have you?
Yeah, no. I mean, that would be. I've seen the ones that sleep paralysis aliens, right? So if I hear some of these people's stories, their abduction stories, and I'm like, they're calling that an alien? Like, holy shit! If that was an alien, then yeah, I've seen a lot of them, because I have the little sleep paralysis demon / alien thing that shows up, and if that's, I'm listening to John Blitch's story that he came out with Ross Coulthart right after Jake Barber, and I'm like, what he's explaining probably happens to a lot of people, where you can either have some very interpretive dreams, There was articles on that recently where people who act out their dreams, like if you get up and you're actually like, oh, well, I'm trying to get my cat out of a tree, and you're up reenacting that in your dream, but you're still in a sleep state, but you're standing up in your bed and you're trying to lower your cat out of a tree, that could be a sign of Alzheimer's. And that people that do that, and I saw that study come out on that, but John Blitch is talking about that like, oh, well, these dreams that are so real like that, but he's waking up with these scars and things like that. And I'm like, man, you may just be having some very interpretive dreams where you're like acting these things out and it's nothing alien at all. But no, I've never seen any, and let's put it this way, I've never even seen any objects that, because every time I see something that's interesting, like the other night, I'll just say this real quick. I'm looking out in the western sky and I see 3 lights in a row, and it's right over the tree line looking west. So I'm like, that can't be Orion's belt, right? Orion's belt is 1, 2, 3 stars. Orion's belt's usually higher in the sky. It can't be Orion's belt. I'm looking up flight radar. There's no flights out, and it's just perfect 3 little lines. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to be my first UFO? And I started researching, and sure enough, this time of the year, Orion's belt at that time of night, around 10:30 at night here Eastern Standard Time, is very low in the western sky. It was Orion's belt. So some people don't put the research in, and they go and they start spreading information saying, well, look at these, look at what I saw. Every time I've seen something where I felt like it could be anomalous, I usually figure out what it is. Unfortunately.
Makes sense. And is there anything else coming up next week? We had a big week this week, lots of releases, the panel, which apparently Lou says they're going to try and do another panel like that next year.
Mm-hmm.
We hear that there's going to be another. Anna Paulina Luna did say on that panel that there is going to be another hearing soon. She did not say the names, but some pretty big names, she said. So that's exciting, I guess.
Yeah, and you have to understand, she is fulfilling a void, right? So Anna Paulina Luna has stepped into a role where she's supposed to be doing this. She's supposed to be the transparency czar, right? So she has to produce things, right? So she had to do that hearing this week. I don't get the feeling like she was even happy to be there, other than her tweet saying she was really appreciative to meet Avi Loeb. She didn't post anything about that hearing. She didn't communicate it out to anybody. She's not posted any videos, any tweets, any retweets. So I think she was checking a box last week. She was like, look, yeah, there's this UAP thing out here, and these people keep bothering me about it, and I have to do something, right? I have to do a hearing, and she was checking a box last week. So if she checks another box, us UAP UFO people, we're going to be super happy about it, and we're going to watch it, and we're going to think it's cool. Will it even get any national news? It will not, because you'll have people like Eric Davis talking about reptilians, and no one's going to put that on Fox News or CNN.
The other weird thing about it, I mean, I wish I could have covered it. I wish someone would have told me about it, because the taping of it was not done very well. They did tell me they're going to put out a better quality with fixed sound.
Yeah, the audio is awful.
Yeah, and I know they're new at this, but it's like I would have thought there'd be news. Like there was wasn't packed with cameras or anything. I would have thought there would have been a lot more media covering that.
No, I think it was very closed. It seemed like the audience was very select, very small setting.
Yeah, one of our friends was in that too, and his name is escaping me, but I've interviewed him a few times.
James Fox?
James Fox, but the other guy from Washington that's made some predictions.
Matt Laszlo?
Matt Laszlo was there, but there was he's balding, black shirt always, gray hair.
Oh, Stephen Bassett.
Yes, he was there.
Okay. Yeah, he does a lot of like the lobbying work. I thought I saw Sheehan's shaggy little gray head there. He sticks out, that white shaggy head of his. He always sticks out. I could have swore I saw it, because I'm pretty sure I saw James Fox posting on X, and he's like panning around with his phone. If I'm not mistaken, he could have been reposting.
Why wasn't he filming it? I mean, he's a professional.
Yeah, I know, but him being there and being on the inside, a lot of people had put out that, is James Fox part of this now? Is he part of this coordinated release of information? Because some people have said that the one where he brings out Jason Sands, the program.
Yeah, maybe that goes back to the whole Lou Elizondo thing we were talking about.
Yeah, everybody's wondering because it didn't feel like
By
everybody.
the way, any update on him? But Jason Sands was in some communications for an interview with you at one point.
Yeah, we talked a couple times, and I think Jason had some stuff going on, and yeah, I've not heard much back from him. We had one taping set up, and I didn't hear from him, and then he got back and I was able to get back in contact with him, and we actually set a date and a time. And when I contacted him that morning with a link to join, he told me he had to back out. He said he was too busy with some stuff that he had going on. And then subsequently later, right after that, he ends up on all kinds of X Spaces doing events. And he also had some events he was showing up on for some other stuff. So my guess is Jason was just busy. Like, he had a lot going on in his calendar, and I just was not important enough for, and that's no slight on him. I guess if you have to prioritize and put your ducks in a row, I was probably toward the end of the totem pole, so I got bumped down a little bit. So I don't think I'll pursue Jason Sands anymore. I think he's got busier things going on. So.
And his little limelight has kind of dropped now anyways, but who knows, we might run into him in the future. But we went overtime. I know we had some good viewership tonight. Appreciate everyone for watching. We're going to try and do this every week, update you guys on everything going on in the world of UFOs. So please subscribe to The Hannibal TV on YouTube, or follow us on Facebook or Twitter. We air on all those platforms. Thank you very much, Casey. I'll let you shut things down.
Yeah, I mean, we often go into next week thinking how much is going to be going on, and then boom, tons of stuff happens. So I promise you there will be more that we'll have to cover. And again, whether we like this or not, whether people want to agree with this topic or not, your taxpayer dollars were used again this past week to have your representatives sit around and do intake and briefings on this topic. So when people laugh at you if you go talk about this and they go, "Oh, that's stupid," who's stupid then? Because taxpayer dollars are being spent to research this, to do briefings on this, to do hearings on this. So who is stupid then? So I mean, are we stupid? Are we the ones? Who is stupid in this aspect? Because very educated people, mostly all attorneys, are sitting around talking about this stuff every week and having hearings and briefings on it. So if it's not real, why do they keep propagating this topic? I think that's probably what we need to keep our eye on.